The sun was setting over the dry plains when the two poor rancher brothers, Samuel and Elias, heard the desperate cries. They followed the sound and found a young Apache girl tied to a post, bruised, and abandoned by raiders who had left her for dead. Despite their own poverty, the brothers knew they couldn't walk away. "She's just a child," Samuel muttered, cutting the ropes. Elias nodded. "If we take her in, we'll be risking our lives. Her people might not trust us." But the decision was made. They carried the girl, who could barely speak from exhaustion, back to their modest ranch. The brothers tended to her wounds, gave her food, and for the first time in days, she smiled faintly. Word spread quickly. Neighbors whispered that the ranchers had brought trouble upon themselves by sheltering an Apache. Some even threatened to burn their home if they didn't send her away. Still, Samuel and Elias stood firm. They treated the girl like family until one night, a group of Apache scouts appeared on the horizon. Fear gripped the brothers, but the girl, now strong enough to walk, rushed forward, speaking quickly in her native tongue. The scouts listened. Then, instead of attacking, they gave a respectful nod and took the girl home. She glanced back one last time, eyes filled with gratitude, before vanishing into the night. The brothers never saw her again, or so they thought. Years passed, and the brothers grew older. Their ranch remained poor, their cattle few, but their bond unshaken. Sometimes, by the firelight, they would recall the girl they once saved. "Wonder what became of her," Elias would muse. Samuel would shrug. "Probably forgot us long ago. It was nothing but a small kindness." But deep down, neither of them believed that. The memory of her grateful eyes lingered. Life was harsh. Droughts struck. Bandits raided. They lost cattle, neighbors moved away, and the brothers were left with little but their stubborn pride. Yet through it all, they never regretted the choice they made that day. One winter night, travelers passed through and spoke of tensions rising between settlers and Apache tribes. War, they said, was brewing. The brothers exchanged uneasy glances, remembering the fragile moment of trust that had once saved their lives. Still, years dragged on. The girl they once sheltered became nothing more than a ghost in memory. The brothers grew older, their hair gray, their faces lined. Life gave them little reward for their sacrifice. But destiny has a long memory. And 20 years after that fateful day, the sound of hooves thundered across the plains again, only this time, it wasn't just a handful of scouts. It was an entire Apache army. And leading them was a woman the brothers thought they'd never see again. The town trembled as the Apache riders swept in, their banners raised, their numbers overwhelming. Settlers ran for cover, convinced it was the end. But at the front rode a tall woman, strong, proud, her eyes fierce but calm. She dismounted before the brothers' ranch and removed her headdress. It was her. The little girl they had once saved was now a warrior, an Apache leader. Samuel and Elias stared in disbelief. She approached slowly, and in her eyes burned both the past and the present. "You saved me," she said softly, her voice steady but laced with emotion. "Without you, I would not be here today." The brothers exchanged glances, unsure of what was coming next. Was she here to repay their kindness, or to claim vengeance for the years of conflict between their peoples? Her warriors waited in silence, hands on their weapons, watching closely. "You gave me life when the world wanted me dead," she continued. "I told my people about you. For years, I carried your names like sacred fire. And now," she looked back at the vast army behind her, then forward again at the humble ranch. "I have returned." The tension was unbearable. The townsfolk whispered in terror. But then she extended her hand, not in war, but in gratitude. "You are under my protection." The Apache army did not come as enemies that day but as guardians. While other towns suffered raids, Samuel and Elias's ranch remained untouched. The warriors camped nearby, keeping watch as though bound by an unspoken oath. The townsfolk, once quick to judge, were bewildered. "Why them?" they whispered. "Why those poor brothers?" But the truth was clear. Kindness had rippled across decades, and now it had returned with the strength of an army. The Apache woman, now a respected leader, visited often. She told them of her journey, the years of struggle, the battles fought, the way she had risen to command respect. Through it all, she carried their act of mercy like a shield. Elias chuckled one evening by the fire. "All we did was feed a hungry child. And that," she replied firmly, "was everything." The brothers, once forgotten and mocked, were now honored beyond measure. The Apache treated them as kin. Their ranch thrived again, protected by an invisible bond of loyalty and respect. Still, the weight of her presence brought questions. Why had she returned now, after 20 long years? What purpose did her army truly serve? One night, she finally revealed the truth. Around the firelight, her voice carried the weight of destiny. When my father died, she said, he made me promise, if ever I commanded warriors, I would repay the men who gave me life. Today, I keep that promise. Samuel's eyes watered. Elias, silent, gripped her hand. You saved me when you had nothing, she continued. Now, I give you what I have, my people's strength, our loyalty, and my vow. No harm will ever touch you while I live. The brothers could hardly speak. They were simple men, poor ranchers who had spent their lives enduring hardship. Yet here they were, honored by an entire nation because of one act of mercy. The Apache army stayed for weeks, repairing fences, hunting game, and protecting the land. The brothers' ranch, once failing, blossomed again. When the army finally departed, the Apache leader remained for a moment longer. She pressed her forehead to Samuel's, then to Elias's, a gesture of eternal respect. Family is not just blood, she whispered. It is the bond we choose. And with that, she rode away, her army following. The brothers stood on their porch, tears in their eyes, knowing their kindness had come full circle. They had once saved a lost girl. Now, she had returned as their greatest protector.